This is Voices in Validation, brought to you by IVT Network. IVT Network is your expert source for life science regulatory knowledge. Voices in Validation brings you the best in validation and compliance topics. We interview industry experts from pharma, biotech, med devices, and laboratories. Here is the host of Voices in Validation, Stacy.
Thank you, and welcome to another episode of Voices in Validation, brought to you by the IVT Network. As we begin to harness the data delivered through AI and further refine the processes and supply chain, new norms around surface contamination and sanitization, IVT Network strives to bring to light some of the most innovative products and uses for the benefit of the entire life science industry. And in drug and device production specifically, we're accustomed to concerns around contaminants and mitigation of impurities, pollutants, toxins, and certainly heightened awareness around this topic is a direct result of the coronavirus pandemic, which definitely has impacted the way we think and act about cleaning processes, and clearly will continue to do so for a long time. I'm here today to talk about clean surface technologies and his invention, BioFoam, is Scott Smith, CEO of AquaFlex. So welcome, Scott. So great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So, I've read up a lot about you, watched some videos. It seems like such an amazing discovery that you stumbled on quite accidentally. So before we jump into some larger discussions about the product, can you take a moment to tell our audience about yourself?
Yes, I'd be happy to, and I will try to do the best I can to capture 20 years and no more than 3 minutes.
Precisely. Take your time.
My journey, what I call is sustainability without compromise. This is going to be the genesis of the whole thing, and it's based on my real-world laboratory. All my patents are based on real-world data, as you know, from the prior background. And I have a saying that the sweet is never as sweet without the sour, meaning you go through life, whether business or personal. The sour experiences, until you have them, you know the sweet when you see it, whether it's good business partners or a good relationship or anything else. And some of the sour experiences I treat as assets. And I do public speaking to kids, and I tell them, they're going to experience some sour. Don't hold grudges, learn from it, move on. And what I'm going to talk about is the flood that wiped out my entire life. I could have given up. Sour experience, and we wouldn't be here without that. So I'm going to start in 2002. I had an open cell foam that gained approval at the U.S. military, specifically the Army's request from the FDA as a medical device. And the reason why is the foam itself, the open cell foam, was non-polar. There was no other technology like it. And then a medical lotion gets infused. So the troops are exposed to a sarin gas attack. You literally, infuse the foam and wipe your skin and you live. And that got approved. Well, little did I know, 20 years later, there would be a pandemic involving my daughter, a frontline worker. And for the same reasons that the US military and the FDA approved this technology as a medical device, for the same and similar reasons, it has a place in mitigating and eliminating germs. So in 2006, my factory, I made, early stage sustainable foams, biodegradability for yoga mats, football helmets, camping mats, and so on. And my life and business was wiped out in oil contaminated floodwaters. 500-year flood. Insurance company declared the manufacturing space in the basement and didn't pay. Liquidated my life savings, put everything in, and in the corner, I noticed this medical foam that was still in many ways in the early stages from 2002 and just getting traction, was absorbing all the oil and repelling water. And these, quote, single-use plastic booms and pads you see all over TV were absorbing water and sinking and not working. So I liquidated my savings, saved put it all in, saved the jobs. And you walk these disasters, you see, employees that can't feed their kids or anything. And these disasters are real. Right. And it had a profound effect on me. And And in many ways, you got to bring people together. So I became obsessed with oil and water. Roll forward 2010, I put all the money, we rebuild the factory. And lo and behold, BP happens in 2010. And I'd been using, I was told the foam would never work for oil spills and so on. So based on what I learned, I went into the Gulf, chartered my own boat and said, take me to the oil. And the captain said something like, thousands of people before you, I'm glad to take your money. And I think it was an iPhone 2, threw him my iPhone and took this open cell foam material that I had adapted for oil cleanup. And we literally started scrubbing the marshes, and it ended up on the cover of the USA Today business section. One thing led to another and all these different disasters. So there's where I talk about sustainability without compromise. So we get involved, and here I think the recycling and the politicians and the landfills and the legacy companies, I get it. A truly sustainable technology. I had, one contractor say, Scott, if we use your technology, we'll lose 80% of our revenue. We're never going to use it. And, it's all about education and being respectful. And I get that. So the same thing happens in any other industry. So, so as things moved forward, I roll forward and the foam gets used in algae. It realizes, and again, it's the real world laboratory. I started to get phone calls in 2012. I had no idea. Suspended solids, EPA testing. I didn't know. I had customers that saw me in the media and said, well, you're not going to believe this. This removes suspended solids, oil and grease. We stopped our EPA fines. One thing leads to another. And then I start getting phone calls. Will this work on, particles and, metals, particulate metals for algae? And I said, I don't know. I'll try it. So hence the patents I have are based on over 60 real world disasters. I started going to all these disasters and became obsessed with it. So it gets specified and is now used in the state of Florida to help remediate algae and a bunch of other things. So roll forward to 2020. I've been in all these disasters, thought I've seen all the spin and everything else. My daughter, a frontline worker at a nursing home, full PPE gear, and 95 mask, gets COVID. Over half the staff gets COVID. It's fine now, thank God. But this is something that happened over and over on the front line. So what I do is I immediately get approached. It's just like any other disaster. I reach out to a subject matter expert. His name's Daryl Hicks, and he says, Scott, surfaces, it's primarily airborne, but you touch your face 20 times an hour, cotton rags, paper towels, deactivate disinfectant. It's called quat binding we'll get into all that later, but I am blown away. I thought I've seen it all. So now I'm realizing that cotton rags and paper towels deactivate disinfectant. I go get these strips from Amazon that are $8, and I sure enough prove it in my kitchen. And then I thought of, the medical grade foam from 2002. So I tested in my kitchen. And as you know, there's a video of that. It's right in my real world laboratory in another real world disaster that just so happens to involve, my daughter.
Right. Absolutely.
And
so much has happened to you in the 20 years, clearly. And I love how you're consistently taking the lemons and making lemonade, so to speak, and the creation of BioFoam. I want to step back just for a couple minutes to have you explain a little bit more about the BioFoam technology, because you did mention that it was being used as a medical device for military, and then obviously spun off into much greater uses, cleaning up contaminants, spills, etc. And clearly this has many more uses than you originally intended. So I want you just to talk a little bit more about the original discovery of the BioFoam for the military purpose, and how that now, fast forward 20 years, may translate into the development and manufacture of, uses for pharmaceuticals and medical devices. Medical devices.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. The foam is known on the EPA list as AquaFlex open cell foam, and that's the original material. So the transition into BioFoam literally came in my kitchen when I realized if you take disinfectant and, spray the disinfectant in the foam, it doesn't deactivate it versus the paper towels. So since when you take the AquaFlex open cell foam, you use it to disinfect, it becomes the BioFoam. And it's really simple science. It's non-polar. So, and germs, typically disinfectants have a positive charge, and paper towels and cotton rags have a negative charge. So when they come together, the disinfectant and the paper towels cancel each other out.
Okay.
So you're basically spreading water and propagating the germs even more on the surfaces. So that's kind of the science, how it came out of it. And then I started, posting things on LinkedIn and social media. And then I met a partner, Jeff Vosek, and we formed US Biosolutions and took it from there. And then all of a sudden we had hundreds of thousands of dollars of business in less than a year. And people started saying, wow, I'm replacing not only using this for disinfection, like a typical household sponge. This is antimicrobial because it's non-polar, it repels water, which means it's inherently antimicrobial and will never smell. So that became one thing, grew after another. And then we get into the single-use paper towels. Not only are you not spreading germs, but you're also contributing to a huge waste footprint.
Right, absolutely. So talk to me a little bit more then. Obviously, this foam, whether it's AquaFlex in its original form or now BioFoam, which, as I understand it, just carries also some sort of cleaning or disinfectant in the product, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then I came across, people reached out as I learned a lot about disinfectants, and alcohol has its drawbacks. Conventional, most of the market is quaternarium, ammonium type compounds, which have side effects. Every person's different, as we know. Then I came across what we call stabilized hydronium. It basically has a pH down around lemon juice of around 1.8, and it is non-toxic, unlike alcohol and a lot of the other disinfectants. So we created this product called BioWash, started infusing it, and realized that that there was a sustainable, non-toxic way to better protect your health. And again, COVID is the big thing on people's mind. Yeah, it's airborne, but it is spreading on surfaces. And I also reached out to the Australian National Science Agency, who did a study that was peer reviewed. It hasn't been, quoted a lot in the US for whatever reason, but COVID lives up to 28 days on surfaces, and we got the variants and all that. So that's basically, a continuation of my real world laboratory and story. I mean, I have trouble kind of believing this story myself because it's so many different things. I mean, and the reason I say that is I had no idea. It's almost unbelievable that 20 years later, that this, for the same reason this worked with the FDA and the US military, it works to help mitigate germs on surfaces. What is unbelievable to me, and I find unbelievable, is that paper towels and cotton rags deactivate disinfectant. And this
I had no idea. I know, I had no idea. We think we're doing the good thing, right? When we take our Clorox wipes and we wipe down our surfaces, but it sounds like the disinfectant is not making it to the surface. It's being deactivated before it can ever decontaminate our surfaces. Yeah. And
that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. So listening to you talk, we can tell BioFoam can be combined with other agents to absorb chemicals on surfaces, even on the human skin, as in the case with the US military. So, in my mind, it's easy then to make the leap to first aid applications in laboratories and industrial settings. Let's say in the event of an accidental contact or chemical spill. Talk to us a little bit more about the possibilities of adoption in this way.
Yeah, and first of all, I want to point something out. That's a great question. Dr. Tawando Gumbo, who is a World Health Organization expert to look at TB, and I made some notes. I want to read it. He reached out to me recently, and this is the first time I'm talking about this publicly. His background is director of the Center for Infectious Diseases Research and Experimental Therapeutics at the Baylor Institute of Immunology Research, and he was recently named a World Health Organization, task force on the task force for TB and other infectious diseases. He reached out to me, and we've started very early stages working with this material, and it has implications for some bacteria resistant pathogens. Now, I want to point out just some real important things. The Lancet on January 20th, 2022, 1.2 million people died in 2019 from antibiotic resistant bacterial infections. That's more deaths than HIV, AIDS, or malaria. And then the UK Prime Minister, in a review on antimicrobial resistance, by 2050, the deaths attributable to antibiotic resistant pathogens and bacteria will outstrip cancer, diabetes, road traffic, and cost up to $1 trillion. And this is all in a lot just coming out in 2022. And this is the mind-boggling one. On January 29, 2022, in Medical News, it talks, this is a quote, "Antimicrobial resistance is not an abstract threat lurking in the shadows anymore." One WHO study, World Health Organization, predicts that deaths from drug-resistant diseases will reach 10 million by 2050.
Unbelievable.
And that makes COVID look like it is serious as COVID is, and the unfortunate tragedy that it caused. That this is, if we don't start working to solve this, it may look like COVID look like a blip compared to all these other things. Right.
We have so many issues that we need to solve, Scott. And I do want to get into your thoughts around that particular topic. In that, how do you see products like BioFoam or AquaFlex helping to mitigate those resistant, drug-resistant, antibiotic-resistant, whatever pathogens? But before we do that, I want to step back and give you a moment to answer the previous question around the technology. Are you using this technology in industrial settings and labs? Accidental chemical spills, accidental contact for folks with routine lab ingredients, let's say.
Yes, we are. We're using it what we call everyday spills that you don't necessarily read about. 1 gallon of oil spilled in the water contaminates 1 million gallons of water. That's right from the EPA. Right. So everyday spills in different configurations, it's used to remove oil from water, chemical spills, everyday labs, and disinfection. There are consumer products available for people to use in their households. And there's a big deal about waste footprints. So not only in sustainability without compromise is this technology is not only the best to protect and preserve you and your family's health, but also for the environment. That's what there's no because it's reusable over and over again, and you're killing the germs, and you're not sending single-use plastics or paper towels to the dump, increasing the waste footprint.
Yeah, which is so huge, given the the environmental crisis that we are in currently. In follow up to that, Scott, so you're talking about being able to reuse this product, which is amazing. How do you rid the product of the oil or the other contaminants that it absorbs, and where do those go?
That's a great question. And then, for example, if it's an algae remediation, and the state of Florida has been great to work with, if it's an algae, we can dispose in a waste to energy factory, which is high plasma. So instead of taking the contamination out of the water and making it disappear way underground and moving contamination, we are eliminating it and also doing something that is the most sustainable solution in generating power to destroy it. So the reuse, yes, if it's in your kitchen, if it's soap and water, you can put it in the laundry and dry it. But if you're pulling dangerous chemicals or pathogens out of water, you need to destroy it in a responsible, sustainable way to protect the environment. So but it gets used every day, whether it be for disinfection, oil, chemicals, algae. and a whole host of other applications.
Absolutely. So thinking about clean rooms and laboratories, then, much in the pharmaceutical industry, how can this product change the way, we view biocontamination cleaning practices? And can it be used in HVAC system or hoods to further ensure air quality?
The funny thing is the HVAC, you see this, it's all about surface area, because the open cell foam, like the alveoli of the human lungs, has a surface area of a half a tennis court. So basically, this material is open cell. There's 300 square foot of surface area for every square foot 1 inch thick. And what that means is it's like it breathes contamination and exhales clear water or, clear air. And infusing this with a non-toxic disinfectant, and the reason this and putting it in HVAC systems, we are working with a company early stage development right now for solutions in air handling, and you will not be breathing toxic, chemicals that are a concern to your health.
Right, which is very important. I mean, I know that those technologies would be essential in some of the compounding pharmacies and clean room spaces that our pharmacists are working daily. So, and we're looking for sustainable ways as an industry that we can improve our efficiencies and best practices. So I look forward to hearing more about your journey into the HVAC world. I do, before we move forward, wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to some of those statistics that you shared from the World Health Organization and get your further thoughts on that. In terms of how your product or products like BioFoam might be able to help, bring those statistics down a little bit in coming years.
Well, first of all, you can't kill. I mean, we talk about science you can trust, and it's pretty much settled science. If you don't make contact with active disinfectant for the germ or pathogen, you can't kill it. I think everyone can agree on that.
Correct.
So, and with the surfaces, and even, there's gravity, these infectious droplets settle on surfaces. So when you look at the impact of MRSA and C. diff alone, their mortality rate is somewhere around 10%, according to experts, maybe more. COVID's around 2.22% or something. And the MRSA and C. diff, these for immunocompromised people, if you survive that, many people end up with amputation of a limb. So what you have to do, the best way to these antibiotic resistant pathogens, the best way is to kill them before they infect anybody.
Right.
Hence, this comes to this, and we kill them. They're never going to be resistant to what we call the non-toxic hydronium. And I won't get into the molecules H904, H502, that can be follow-up or a separate thing, but it's the ability of that to basically, if you look at the wall of the pathogen, it's like a balloon. We're going up we've got a positively charged hydronium ion and pulling literally like the metal or the paper clips through the cell wall, lysing the cells, bursting it, killing it. So it's physics, not chemistry. These germs aren't going to become resistant. And in another thing, the wound care infections post-surgery, and I learned this from Dr. Gumbo, surgical site infections, it has an acronym called SSI. I know we live in a world full of acronyms. 4 to 6% of all hospitals, of all surgeries have infections post-surgery. And I didn't know this, that post-surgery, the hospitals and medical facilities are not reimbursed from insurance companies, even Medicare and Medicaid. It costs them $10 billion per year. So here's where we talk about sustainable, first and foremost, protecting people's health, and also without compromise, making things more cost efficient. Think about that cost on the healthcare system. That 10 billion is not that impacts all of us and drives healthcare costs up.
Right.
But these are some of the solutions we need to rapidly develop, and we need to also speed up the regulatory process with the EPA and FDA. And we're working with some great people in those organizations.
Excellent. So digging in just a little bit deeper then, can this tool as a method for disinfectant delivery, be used in sterile environments? I mean, so it sounds like it can. I'm thinking, originally I was thinking, we talked a little bit about clean rooms in the HVAC and airflow systems, but also in the clean room itself. But to your point, in the OR, where they're doing surgery and things need to be sterile, talk to us a little bit more about that scenario and what you're doing to develop products for that.
That's a great question, and actually this is a little bit proprietary, and this is the first time publicly, but a 100-year-old company reached out to me on LinkedIn in 2020 and said, Scott, you don't realize what you have. And as an inventor, I love it when somebody tells me that, because the microfiber cloths, and this goes to the OR, we have some pilot programs underway. And what that is that is the BioFoam that delivers the disinfectant, and the microfiber cleans. So in one swoop, you have one step cleaning and disinfection, because you have to get the soil off the surface. We could end up I won't get into all those details, but here again, preventing infection, because operating rooms, and they believe they can decrease the changeover time in ORs and in other facilities by 5 to 10 minutes. And that's a big deal. So again, protecting and preserving human health, number one, and simultaneously lowering costs. So we call, again, that drives the sustainability without compromise. But I can't, I can't believe you. Thank you for asking that question, because no one's ever asked me that question before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my brain is like, I've got like so many thoughts going through it of all of the potential uses, as I'm sure you have been doing that for the last 20 years. But it seems like such an amazing product. And with that being said, this technology is proven. I know you're still developing new methods for delivery, new uses, which is all fantastic. But given that you do have a technology that's already working, why then do we continue to use the old-fashioned methods of cleaning?
That is a great question. And, and if the listeners, viewers take away one thing, please take this away more than anything else. Have you ever seen the movie Tucker, about the guy in automotive that
Yes.
invented the car? Well, Tucker, his innovations, there's like aerodynamic styling, padded dashboards, seat belts, fuel injection, and disc brakes. Well, when he came out with that, and I think in 1948, he was shut down by the big three. And the reason, but think about, see where we are now. Think about the lives that would have been saved if there would have been early adoption when he proved it out. And the reason why, when you say it's not being, I get it. And we need to educate people. It's about education and we have social media this day to educate the public. But legacy companies, they're going to protect their profits. And I get that. And the single-use paper towels, and that's why, again, sustainability without compromise. And it's all about the real world laboratory, because my technology, all my patents fit the one, 99% of all patents that get issued never get practiced. All of my patents are in the 1%, meaning the real world laboratory. So the key to answering your question is overcoming, the legacy technologies and how we currently work. And sometimes you have to make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. And we believe in education and challenging in a professional way. And that's really why you see a lot of legacy technologies, whether it's in pharmaceuticals, cleaning, disinfection, or anything else. Sometimes the best available technology does not win out, or it takes a long time. Hence why when I get a similar question, I tell people to watch the movie Tucker, because it really applies more than ever in today's society. Sure.
So, and just to follow that up, you talked about single-use applications, and obviously we're in an industry where single-use applications are very common, which is long-term a detriment to sustainability efforts and therefore sound environmental practices. So, why is this product more relevant now than ever before, given the crossroads that we're at with environment, with the need for better contaminant remediation of contaminants? It seems like this is your moment.
Yeah, well, I will tell you. So here's another really good question. The Earth and humanity are not sustainable with the current population growth, the way businesses operate, and the way people live their everyday lives.
Right.
And the threat of pathogens to human existence. We saw that with COVID, and now we've talked about all the other data. But there's cause for great optimism here, and I believe this is that every passing moment is a chance to turn it all around. And this is why you embrace the sour experiences. Time we can turn this all around because every single person can make a difference. Like our sponges and our mitts replace 4,000 paper towels. And it's all about education and bringing people together. And as you educate, you may make some legacy companies and individuals uncomfortable, and that's okay. But you always treat them with respect and try to educate. But as fractious as today's society can be, I have never been more optimistic. I do a lot of speaking. I graduated from Baylor. I'm donating an algae patent to Baylor because in the academic world, we need to bring people together. But I've never been more optimistic in meeting the younger generation. They get it. They can see through the older people like us. If we start to BS them, they're really good at calling you out, which I really, which needs to be done. I have great faith in that we can do this.
Yeah, we need some of that skepticism to help us move forward for sure. And I say that in a good way. Like a little bit of skepticism is a good thing, because we can't blindly believe everything that's told to us these days. And so that's a great point. No BS here. So Scott, amazing. Thanks for sharing so much information with us in just such a short period of time today. I know it's taken you over 20 years to figure this all out, and it's still a work in progress. But I'm hopeful, as are you. And as we wrap up today, I just want to see if you have any last thoughts that you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Yeah, I think I want to, because we live in fractious times, and I'm still optimistic that we can bring people together. And I want to point to the World War II generation. If you think about World War II and putting a human being on the moon and returning them, think about the great teamwork and what we can do as society, specifically in this country. And that's why I'm optimistic, because I see this. If I look at Dr. Tawanda Gumbo and some of the things I'm working with, and collaborate, work with other people and bring people together. And then, the whole sustainability without compromise, we can solve the world's quote, unsolvable problems. And I always come back to putting a man on the moon. When you think about how getting somebody on the moon and bringing them back, that is incredible. So we can solve all these, pathogens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Scott. It's been such a pleasure to have you here with us today. I really appreciate your time and you sharing all of your knowledge with our listeners.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Stacy.
Thank you. Also want to give a shout out to our producer, Ben Kitchen. And lastly, a big thanks to you, our valued listeners. We do appreciate your time each week and your help in sharing each and every episode. If you're interested in learning more about the Voices of Validation podcast or resources from today's episode, please visit www.ivtnetwork.com/podcast. We'll be back again next week with another great conversation. Until then, stay healthy and safe.